know a little bit about the poem Bora Ring by Judith Wright. Now, when we talk about Judith Wright, she was a white poet who was highly interested in Aboriginal rights. This poem Bora Ring actually encompasses two groups of people: the whites, that is, the settler Australian whites, and the indigenous Australians. Now, why are we talking about these two groups of people? Because the settler whites are not essentially the original inhabitants of Australia. So, Australia was a land occupied by its original inhabitants, the Aboriginals, and it was only in 1788 that Captain Cook arrived with a shipload of convicts from Britain looking for a new place to house those convicts, and that is when he accidentally reaches the land of Australia. Upon reaching the land, they realize that it is inhabited by tribes, who have their own ways of doing things. But unfortunately, with their highbrow modernist attitude towards everything, they realize or they felt that this land does not belong to anybody. So they're just a handful of tribes who are infighting, and they do not have proper property laws like they had back in Britain. So it is declared Australian land, the continent is declared terra nullius. Terra nullius means no one's land. So this land belongs to no one, makes it very easy for the British contingent to capture it or to lay their claims on the land. So they dispossess the indigenous Australians, the aboriginals of their land, and they settle down there. But it was not a very peaceful process. So the entire process was rather murky, and it was confusing. So what happens ultimately is that in the process there are conflicts going on between the indigenous Australians and the settler whites, and ultimately because of their superior ammunition and arms, they ultimately outnumber the aboriginals and overpower them, and gradually start homogenizing them, making them a part of the settler white population, teaching them their own ways of life. And in this entire process, the Aboriginal way of life is totally lost. It's wiped out. And whatever little bit is left, they convert into Christianity, and they forget their own roots. Bora Ring is an elegy. It's an elegy to all the losses that the Australian Aboriginals have felt. The poem also has an ecological undertone, where Wright is actually celebrating this symbiotic relations that the Aboriginals had with nature, as opposed to the the exploitative tendencies that the settler whites had. So now we move on to the poem. The song is gone. The dance is secret with the dancers in the earth, the ritual useless, and the tribal story lost in an alien tale. Only the grass stands up to mark the dancing ring. The apple gum's posture and mime a past for robbery murmur a broken chant. The hunter is gone. The spear is splintered underground. The painted bodies a dream the world breathed, sleeping and forgot. The nomad feet is still. Only the rider's heart holds such a sightless shadow, an unsaid word that fastens in the blood of the ancient curse. Okay, so we begin with the first stanza of the poem. The song is gone. The dance is secret with the dancers in the earth, the ritual useless, and the tribal story lost in an alien tale. Okay, so what song is the poet here talking about? She's talking about the Aboriginal song. So she's saying that the song is gone. Where is it gone? The song does not have wings to fly away. So the song has been lost. It has been lost in the process of homogenization that has been initiated by the settler whites. The dance is secret with the dancers in the earth. So she beautifully, extends that image of that song which is dead. Okay, so the song is dead because the singers who were singing it are no longer there. They are dead, and they passed it on, bequeathed it as a privilege onto the next generation. But the next generation could not learn it, because before they could learn it, their ancestors were dead, and they were already being trained to the white settler ways of life. So the dance is secret with the dancers in the earth. Okay, so the dance is also dead, the song is dead, and the dance is dead with the dancers in the earth. In the earth means they are buried now in graves. They are gone, they have turned into dust. So they are no longer living. So the song and dance is lost. Okay, so the poem begins with on a melancholy tone, with the poet actually um, lamenting the loss of the Aboriginal songs, the Aboriginal dances, as well as the Aboriginal people who held the knowledge of these songs and dances. At the same time, she's also lamenting over the future generations, the next generations who could not or who did not have a scope of learning it from their ancestors, and so could not carry the tradition forward of the Aboriginal singing and Aboriginal dancing. The ritual useless and the tribal story lost in an alien day. Okay, so their ritual was branded useless. So the rituals they would perform was all termed, useless. So it had no meaning for the settler whites, and hence it was useless. The tribal story was lost in an alien tale. So the story of the Aboriginals, it got somehow burdened, it was burdened under the tail of the white settlers. So the white settlers came in, and what did they do? They started writing their own history. So in the process of scripting their own history, the oral history of the Aboriginals got wiped away. So whatever history was being passed on from generation to generation amongst Aboriginals, it was lost. That tribal story was no longer a part of the Australian national story. Only the grass stands up to mark the dancing ring. The apple gums posture and mime a past for robbery, murmur a broken chant. Okay, so now she is moving on to Bora Ring. So what does Bora Ring mean? Bora rings were actually holes that were dug in the ground and were made of mud and stones. Now the Aboriginals, would carry out certain dances, some rituals in the form of singing, dancing around these holes, and it was considered to be a very sacred place, and women and children were not allowed to this place. So she says, Judith Wright, in the first stanza, when she's talking about the singing and dancing and the ritual, she's actually pointing out this Bora ring around which all these rituals, the singing, dancing, and the other rituals would take place. So now she says that is all gone. The singers are gone, the dances are gone, the song and the dance is gone. The ritual has been made useless. The entire story, the reason around which this entire episode of Bora Ring was weaved, that is also gone. So now, a new history has come, a modernist history, a history of the European civilization which has eaten away the tribal story. So it's like the big fish which has eaten away, eaten the small fish. Okay? So now there's nothing left in those rings. There are only grasses to mark the dancing ring. So now there are no people. So earlier those rings would be maintained and looked after, but now there is nothing. There are only grasses. Grasses grow at places where people do not walk, where people do not generally visit. So those grasses, it's overgrown with grasses now, and there is nobody to sing and dance. So it implies that there is nobody to visit those sites. The apple gums posture and mime a past for robbery, murmur a broken chant. So the poet is here imagining that the apple gums, so she's referring to some trees. So she says, that there are no people around those rings now. There are only trees. And it appears to the poet, or the poet is imagining that, the trees are standing there as if mime is, copy. So they are trying to copy a past corroboree. Corroboree is a dance form. So she says that, it seems as if the trees are standing in such a manner as if they are trying to copy the dance that the Aboriginals would do. Okay, so the trees are filling in for the Aboriginals who are no longer there. They're trying to do the ritual which is dead. The murmur a broken chant. So the swaying of the leaves of the trees, it brings a sort of impression, it brings as if the poet imagines, that the leaves are rustling in such a manner. It seems as if they are murmuring those chants which have been lost. So, the songs that would be sung, the chants that would be, chanted while the Aboriginals were dancing around the rings. It seems that chant has been broken. It is lost. The hunter is gone. The spear is splintered underground. The painted body is a dream the world breathed, sleeping and forgot. The nomad feet are still. So the hunter is gone. The hunter here implies the aboriginals. So the aboriginals are gone. They have just disappeared. The spear is splintered underground. So their art of hunting is also lost. Okay. So everything gradually, it's as if she's unlayering, she's uncovering a book, pages, of the book one by one. So she's going over the losses that have taken place. Okay, so now the songs, the dance, the rituals were gone, the tribal story was gone. Now she says that the skills are also gone. So hunting was a skill that they possessed, that is gone. The painted body is a dream the world breathed, sleeping and forgot. Okay, so the painted bodies are also gone. And so, the tribals had a particular way of painting their bodies. So she says that art is also gone. It is dead. It is as if, and it's not just the bodies, the art which is lost, but she says, it becomes symptomatic of aboriginals itself, So it's not that aboriginals have been forgotten. They have been forgotten. Their problems have been forgotten. The world has accepted the white Australian settler state to be a natural state. But she says that is not so. So that is what she laments over, that the painted bodies were like a dream. So the aboriginals as if have become a dream that the world saw when they were sleeping. So they have become like a dream, she compares aboriginals to a dream, the dream that we see when we are sleeping. So when you wake up in the morning, the dream is, if it is a little vivid, so you remember glimpses of it. Otherwise, it's forgotten. So the world has forgotten the woes and troubles of the aboriginals in the same manner. The nomad feet, nomads here are the aboriginals again, whom she is referring to. They are still. Stillness is something again which conjures the image of death. So death brings stillness and coldness. So the nomad feet are still. Only the rider's heart halts at a sightless shadow, an unsaid word. So, there is a rider, and this is she's referring to maybe a white rider. So she says that the white rider halts at a sightless shadow. So those rings are eerie, they have some presence. It's not that they're just gone dead altogether. Their spirits are roaming around those Bora rings. Okay, so a white rider who is riding, suddenly he feels an eerie presence near those rings, an unsaid word, as if he hears a murmur, a chant. And that fastens in the blood of the ancient curse, the fear as old as claim. Okay, so, and what does it evoke? So it evokes in the memory of the rider what images? The images of death, of brother killing brother. So the story of Abel and Cain, they were the children of Adam and Eve, the first human beings. So she's conjuring up an biblical imagery. She says that, Cain and Abel, they were brothers. And Cain was a more cleverer one who had killed Abel. So she says that, when the rider walks by or he rides by those Bora rings, those images come to his mind. He realizes that, a group of human beings have mercilessly killed, wiped away another group of human beings. And she does not mean like physically killing, but she also means, like killing away the rituals, the traditions, and the customs. So the weakers have always been overpowered and dominated by the stronger races. Here, the aboriginals have been weaker as compared to the whites, and so the whites have eliminated the aboriginals' ways of life, just like Cain had eliminated Abel. So she says that it is like a curse that will stay with the human race forever. This hatred of human beings towards other human beings is going to stay forever, and that is what she focuses upon here. So that is the poem Bora Ring for you. Thank you so much for listening.